Hey there, my fellow lunatics, and welcome to Dakon's Madhouse. Alright, everybody, it is time for another upgrade tier list video. This game has so many rings. There are more rings than any other wearable item in the game. And since there are so many, let's just get started with our ranking. So, what are we ranking? How are we ranking? This tier list contains my opinions on which items are worth upgrading and which ones not so much. Now, I'm basing my opinions off of the stats of the items at various levels without reinforcement, and whether the item itself is just useful in general, or how its stats compare to other items of the same type. I also think it's worth mentioning that if you use the item a lot and you think it's worth upgrading, then it's worth upgrading. I'm not telling you how to play. The devs did a great job with the upgrade system to make a lot of items worthwhile at various levels. So if an item is working for your playstyle and you want to keep using it, do so. So what is each tier going to stand for? Let's start with S tier. This tier is the cream of the crop. The best items that are always worth upgrading are going to be here. A tier contains items that are usually worth leveling up to 18, either because you may use them a lot or because its level 18 bonus is just worthwhile. B tier items may not be worth leveling up to 18, but they will stay with you for a long time and be useful at many different levels. C tier items are items that are worth putting a few levels into, but really only to tide you over until you can replace it with something better. Then we've got D tier items, which really aren't worth upgrading at all, but if you put a level or two into them, it won't be the end of the world. And of course, F tier items are a complete waste of time to upgrade. Don't even bother. Let's start these rings off with the Ancient Gem Ring, and this one I'm going to put right into B tier, as it is a pretty good mining ring, and you can get it early on in the game with a little bit of luck. The Ancient Guardian Ring is next, and this one I'm going to put into D tier, as the reduced damage from bosses is fun, but it is limited, and it really just doesn't upgrade much. The Atlantean Worm Ring, however, is going up into A tier, as it is a solid melee ring, and you only need one level to max it up, and that provides a really decent upgrade boost as well. The Black Ring is also going into A tier. It's quick to upgrade. It is an amazing mining ring. However, if you have the Topaz Ring, you may not wear the Black Ring as much. The Bomb Ring. This one is going into F tier. Unless you're using explosives, then it's an S tier item. But for everyone else, it is F tier, as it does nothing but upgrade bombs. However, it does do a pretty good job of upgrading. So if you are going for bombs, it will upgrade well. The Bone Ring is next, and this one is going into F tier, as it is absolutely useless, and since it is so low level, you would have to put a lot into it to make it even remotely viable. It's just not worth it. Caveling Mother's Ring is going into D tier, as if you want the hit point regeneration, it does upgrade well, but it has a very limited use, and you're probably not going to want to spend the resources. The same is true for the Clot Ring. It's kind of in the same vein. It's good in the early game. A couple of levels won't hurt much, but you're not going to get a lot out of it, and it's going to be replaced quickly. The Coral Ring is also going into D tier. If you want your boats to go a little bit faster, then put a few points into this, but it's really not worth upgrading otherwise. The Double Ring is a decent general purpose ring, and I'm going to go ahead and throw it into C tier, as it upgrades very well, but you will replace it with something more specialized, so you'll probably never get this up to 18. The Flame Ring. This one is also going into C tier, as the upgrades really aren't all that great, but it is good for the right burn build. So if you're going with a burn build, this could go up higher and it would be worth leveling it all the way up. But since it is so burn focused, it's probably not going to be necessary to put more than a couple of levels into it before replacing it with something else. The glass bead ring is next, and this one is going right up into S tier. You only have to upgrade it twice. You get really good bang for your buck, and the upgrades are absolutely worth it. Definitely the ring to upgrade. Glow tulip ring is going right into F tier. The only reason to upgrade this is if you want to get maximum glow. Otherwise, there's just no point. The gold crystal ring, this one is going into A tier, as it is an amazing ranged damage ring, and you can get it really early in the game. Definitely worth upgrading. The golden spike ring, however, is not worth upgrading. The polished version of it is better in every way, and it's just not worth spending the resources. The goldfish ring, I'm throwing this one into A tier. Fish biting faster? Heck yeah, that just speeds up the entire fishing process, something that's already annoying as hell. Sign me up. Ivy's ring is going right into the F tier, as there's really not much in the way of its upgrades. It upgrades very poorly. The larva ring is going into D tier, as if you need a few extra hit points early on, then yeah, put some levels into this, because you do get it early enough that it's a decent ring in the early game, but it drops off very quickly. The lucky ring, I'm throwing this one into F tier, because while the bonuses are nice when leveling fishing, it's got a lot of cost for very little reward, so it's just not worth spending the time. The magnetic ring is also going to go into the F tier, as the polished version is better in every way, so there's no reason to spend any time upgrading the magnetic ring. The melting crystal ring is going into A tier though, as it is an excellent dodge ring. It upgrades very well, and you could end up wearing this for a long time. The mold ring, oof, this one is going into F tier. It does not upgrade well, and it has very limited use. But Morpha's ring, on the other hand, is actually pretty good with its upgrades. Unfortunately, there are better rings out there, so I'm just going to put this into C tier, because if you're using it, it is definitely worth upgrading it. The Noble ring, unfortunately, drops itself into the F tier, as it is just way too expensive for the upgrades that you get. But the Nomad ring, however, this one's going into B tier, as all Nomad items are just solid general use items. This thing upgrades very well, it has really good stats, and honestly, you could wear it for a long time. The Octarine ring, however, is terrible. The polished version is better in every way, don't bother. Omeros ring, this one's going into D tier, as the upgrades are weak and just not worthwhile. If you want to put a couple points into it, it won't hurt you, but don't waste your time. The Astara ring, this one is going into A tier, as it is a better version of the melting crystal ring, but it's a little harder to get your hands on, as you can only get it from the Easter boss fight. So I put it pretty much equal in terms of rank, just because of the difficulty to get it. The petal ring, this one I am putting into F tier, as there is no reason to upgrade this. That would change if they change the way that harvest chance works, but once you get to 100% harvest, then there's no point. So petal ring does not need upgrades. The polished glow tulip ring also does not really need upgrades, because it's really not much better than the normal glow tulip ring. It just gives a little bit more glow, and it's just not worth the cost. The polished gold crystal ring, however, this one is an A tier item. It is definitely worth the upgrades, and it is an excellent ranged ring. The polished gold spike ring, this one is going into S tier. It is one of the best crit rings in the game, and it is worth every penny to upgrade it. The polished magnetic ring is also going into F tier, unless you need your ring radius expanded or you're playing with explosive builds. It's really not worthwhile. its explosive damage isn't as good as the bomb ring's explosive damage. So if you have bomb rings, you're not going to need to upgrade the magnetic ring. The polished octarine ring, though, this one is a good general purpose ring, and I'm going to put this one into B tier as it is worth upgrading, and you could hold on to it for a good long time if you don't have a more specialized build. The polished swift ring, this one is going to go into C tier as it provides a pretty good speed boost, and movement speed is useful. If you're wearing it and you're into movement speed, it's worth upgrading. The Ring of Rock. This one is a D tier item, unfortunately. It is decent for the early game upgrades to your armor, and so you could put a few points into it, but eventually you are going to replace it with a better item. The Ring of Sand is going right into F tier, as this ring has super expensive costs for what you're getting out of it, and your upgrades are absolutely terrible. Don't waste your time. The Ring of Stone, however, this one really surprised me, and this one I'm actually going to put into A tier, as it upgrades very, very well, and it is one of the first rings you are ever going to get. You can hold on to this all the way up to the point that you replace it with a topaz ring or a black ring. So this is definitely an A tier item. The Rusted Ring, however, that is not an A tier item. That is an F tier item. The Rusted Ring is just not worth it at all. The Samhain Curse Ring, I'm going to put this one into D tier, as it's one of those rings that you have to balance the upgrade. You only want to put a couple of levels into it, because the cost that you pay in damage is just not worth it in the higher levels. The percentage gets way too high. So it's a point of balancing the drawbacks with the bonuses. The Seafoam Ring is an F tier item. Raising your fish score is an absolute waste of time. Don't bother. The Septum Ring, this one's also an F tier. I honestly don't even know why this ring exists. There are tons of other rings that provide armor bonuses just like it does. The Skull Ring, though, this one I'm throwing into A tier, because in the later levels, when you've got some hit points to spare, you can take the hit point penalty that this one gives you, and the melee attack speed boost is really, really strong. And this is a really good ring for melee users. It's worth it. The Sky Ring, though, it has some good upgrades, but it levels out and plateaus a bit quickly. So I'm going to put this into the C tier, as it's worth pumping a few levels into it if you're using it, but you're never going to take it to 18. The Spine Ring is kind of in the same boat as is the Swift Ring. They are decent rings. The upgrades are worth it, but the cost as you get up there in upgrades just kind of plateaus out and becomes not worth what you're getting out of that ring. The Topaz Ring is next, and this one is an S tier ring. It is by far the best mining ring in the game, and as a result, it will provide you some amazing melee damage boosts as well, making this ring versatile not just as a utility ring, but as a damage dealing ring as well. The Valentine Ring, proving once again that not all items from the seasonal are crap. I'm going to put this one into the B tier, as if you need hit point regeneration, this is a pretty good ring, and the upgrades for it are actually fantastic. However, it is very limited use, so if you don't need the hit point regen, you're not really going to put this to good use. The White Glass Ring is going into A tier, as it is the best dodge ring when it is maxed out. It is absolutely amazing, but it is only useful for dodge. The Wild Warden Ring, this one I'm actually throwing into S tier, and the reason why this one is getting a higher boost than other Wild Warden items is because the damage upgrade on this ring is really, really solid, and it's worth wearing the Wild Warden Ring in many builds besides the Wild Warden build. This is the only item in the Wild Warden set that I would actually recommend if you're not going with a Wild Warden build, so that's what catapults it up to S tier. But the Wooden Ring is absolute crap, and the Wooden Thorn Ring is also absolute crap. Both of them belong in F tier. There's no reason to upgrade them. There are better rings out there that do exactly what they do and do it better. And I think that just about wraps it up for today's video. I hope you enjoyed yourself, and until next time, Stay crazy.